Hello, beloved. This is Glennis, God's girl. Today we're going to be talking about grudges. Um, I am unable to hold a grudge. God taught me a lesson many, many years ago, and since then, I just have a whole new philosophy about grudges and grudge holding. Back when I was in college, my brother, younger brother, asked to borrow money from me. He told me it was to pay his electric bill. My nephew was just turning a year old and had asthma, and they lived in D.C., and so I was not about to have my nephew in the cold with asthma in DC. So I sent him the money. I did tell him, listen, I'm getting an apartment. I'm getting ready to buy a car. I need my money back. When it was time to repay the money, he didn't have it, but he did eventually pay me the money, and it wasn't like a really, really long time frame that passed by. The issue for me turned out to be that I later found out that he borrowed that sum of money from me to throw a big bash at Chuck E. Cheese for my nephew. Now, everybody in my family knows how I feel about throwing extravagant, big, spending a lot of money on birthday parties for 1, 2, and 3 year olds. If you got it like that, that's your business. But if you have to borrow the funds to do that, I just think it's crazy because the child doesn't remember that. You're not really doing it for the child. You're doing that more for yourself, in my opinion. Anyhow, I was real upset about that because I used to tell my brother, I've been there for you your whole life. I've always looked out for you. I'm the one person you never have to con, never have to lie to me. So I was upset that he had lied to me. Now, if I'm being honest, if he had told me what it was for, I would have said no, I need my money, and no, I'm not doing that. But anyhow, neither here nor there. So I got upset with him, and I stopped talking to him for a period of time. I did keep up with his life through my other brother, through my grandmother, and things. And I didn't have in my mind how long I wasn't going to speak to him or whatever, but it turned into a year. My job at the time had me on the phone with people from all over the United States, and somebody that was in DC called, and I said, oh, I have a brother in DC. Let me call him and, end this grudge. It had literally been a year. It was a Friday night. I'll never forget it. I knew from my grandmother that he had just recently purchased a home and had just started moving in that week. So I didn't have his new telephone number. This predated the time when everybody had a cell phone. I called my grandmother, to ask if she had his new number. She couldn't put her hands on it at that moment, and she said, when I locate it, I'll give it to you. Probably call you tomorrow. Okay, no problem. I go to bed. My phone rings in the middle of the night. I had a roommate at the time who got phone calls throughout the night, and I was like, just didn't answer it, and I went to sleep. The next morning, my brother in California called to tell me that my brother that I was trying to end this grudge with had passed away. One thing you all will learn about me is that I am definitely a crier. Sad tears, happy tears, I'm a crier. Everybody knows me, I'm a bucket of water. But anyhow, he called to tell me that my brother had been killed. There was a gang initiation in the area where he lived, and apparently in order to get into this gang, you had to kill a stranger. This young man fired 7 shots into a car with 2 unarmed people in it. My nephew's mother was in the car with my brother. She survived. She was shot 3 times in the arm, once in her abdomen. My brother was shot twice in the head and died at the hospital. What has always bothered me about that is that I came so close to speaking to him again. My brother and I, very, very close. We're the 2 oldest. I'm the oldest, and he's just under me. And nobody is promised tomorrow. So a grudge is really never worth it if the person that has upset you in whatever way is important to you. Now, if they don't matter, the grand scheme of your life, then it's really not a grudge. If you ask me, that's, I believe in that saying by Maya Angelou that when people show you who they are, believe them. Excuse me, I'm trying to get myself together here. But when people show you who they are, believe them. But I feel like it's an incomplete statement for me. So when people show me who they are, I do believe them, and then I have a decision to make. Either I'm going to keep this person as part of my life in some way, or I'm not. If they're not important in the grand scheme of things, then let them go. It's you can love people. There are a lot of people I've chosen to love from a distance. What really bothered me, and what another thing God showed me, was that he can handle our anger. God can, because I was extremely angry with him. Like, why would you let me get that close to being able to speak to my brother again and not let it happen? I mean, I interrupted a church service. The pastor like shut the choir down in mid song. You know, black churches don't do that, but anyhow, um, it there was a lot of things for me to handle with, after, to deal with rather, after that. Just the guilt of not speaking to him, of just not, of hanging on to, and I wasn't even angry the whole time. I just, actually, it became a habit of not speaking to him. But he was 28 years old. You know, you don't expect a 28-year-old to die. I have heard since then, I've heard people say like just horrible, horrible things to people that I know that they love, in a moment. And I've told them, I know you may feel like you mean that right now, but what if that's the last thing you say to that individual and they don't wake up tomorrow? The guilt that you are left feeling after that is so not worth it. So I feel like we need to be very careful about our words. We definitely need to. I've since everybody in my life knows that I basically let people know how I feel about them now, because it goes both ways. If you love somebody and never tell them, my brother and I were not socialized to say I love you to each other, and as teenagers who was doing that. But I know that he loved me. He knew I loved him. It was an action thing. I actually had a very hard time dealing with that after his death, that I could not remember a time where I ever told my brother that I loved him. Charles Stanley had a really great exercise that I did, and it kind of gave me peace, and that was that you just sit an empty chair in front of you and tell, as if that person is sitting there, and talk to them. I know that my brother knew Christ, so I know I will see him again, and I knew that he loved me, and I know that God's hand was in it. My brother had really turned his life around in those last few years before his death, and I feel like he kind of had to do that. God knew he was bringing him home. It just really hurt my feelings, and it's why I cannot hold a grudge to this day. Also, I don't ignore ringing telephones in the middle of the night anymore either, because I knew it. Again, the reason I didn't answer that call was great. I mean, it's good that I didn't answer the call, because I had to get up and drive several hours to go and get my grandmother, and so that we could fly up, to handle the burial and everything, and dealing with everything behind that. That's a whole nother story that for another day. But if people are important in your life, tell them. If somebody makes you mad or does something, you need to forgive them. I mean, forgiveness is not even necessarily for them, because you're gonna have to forgive some people in your life who are never going to say they're sorry or even act like they're sorry. They may not even understand what they did. I got a couple of those in my life too. But if you don't forgive, then it kind of eats away at you, the bitterness that can grow. And I was never really bitter with my brother. I know that I had to fight a big battle on his behalf after he died. But I was still his big sister. I was still going to look out for my brother. Somebody actually went as far as to mention to me, like, you didn't even speak to your brother for the last year of his life. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I didn't. But I fought for my brother his whole life. And I'm not going to, please don't mistake the fact that because he's gone that I'm not going to at this point too. Also, my brother knew I loved him, he also knew I was going to look out for him, which is why 6 months before he died, I was made the second beneficiary on his life insurance. He had other people in his life that he could have done that with, but that speaks, and it spoke volumes to me anyway. But please understand that a grudge, especially if it ends the way that mine did, if there's anybody in your life that you haven't spoken to for whatever reason, if you don't feel comfortable speaking to them, write them a letter, send them a text, send them a voicemail, any way that you can reach out, send them I wouldn't actually suggest sending a message through somebody else, because that could get sticky. But if there's somebody that you miss from your life because of the relationship, and something happening, I feel like you really should reach out, because I would give anything to have been able to speak to my brother that night. I mean, it still would have hurt that he died, but I would have felt infinitely better myself if I had had the opportunity to speak to him. And the fact that I was trying to reach him on the night that he died just didn't sit well. Anyhow, that's what I have for today. Take from it what you will. If it doesn't apply to you, if you know somebody that maybe needs to hear that, please share with them. Please hit that subscribe button and hit notifications. I will be trying to post on the weekends, because I just got a promotion at work. Yay, me. So I'm very, very busy during the week, so I'm not certain that work in the middle of the week is going to work. But and you will see me crying a lot, so sorry if you don't like tears. You'll see it a lot. I hope that this has been helpful to you, and if you, like I said, if it doesn't apply to you, then anybody that you need to share it with, please hit like, subscribe, leave a comment below with anything maybe that's, some topics that you'd like for me to cover. Either I will have gone through something similar, or share a story about a grudge, or, some unforgiveness maybe that you're having. I'll be happy to pray over any and all comments. Thank you so much. Y'all have a blessed day.